Hi, well, just want to let you know the stand is working. We're waiting and they'll get it started here in a moment.
Here we go. Can you hear us okay, Walt?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent.
Here we go. It's called to order. Roll call. Let's start with you, man. Oh, Carl here.
Maxfield here.
Richardson here.
Moore here. Freilinger here. Thank you. Public comment. Yamhill encourages all citizens to comment on any city business except land use applications. This is not a dialogue platform. Comments shall be limited to 5 minutes. If you request special accommodation for additional time, please contact me. And so here we go. Who signed up to talk? Anybody?
I did, but it was for the public hearing one.
All right, we'll wait for that. Anybody else? Anybody online wanting to do public comment? All right, moving on. Presentations, none. Public hearing. CU 24-04, conditional use application to establish a child care facility on property located within the single family residence zone. So procedures for public hearings. Let's read those while you pull up your application.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Okay, I talked to Walt about this. I kind of have an interest in this, but he said it's not a financial interest.
Oh, good.
So I don't have to recuse myself. But
Okay.
I do have 3 great-grands that are involved in this thing. We're kind of related through marriage. So just declaring that.
Great, and we'll ask for that too later on, but thank you.
Okay, so basically, just to clarify, you do not have direct interest to either financially gain or lose money on this application, and you're declaring that you can make an unbiased decision, correct?
All right,
Okay,
thank you. The criteria must be satisfied for approval of this action, or that must be satisfied, are listed in the city staff report. Public testimony must be directed to those criteria or other criteria in the plan or land use regulation which the testifier believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements of evidence sufficient to afford the planning commission and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes an appeal based on that issue. Prior to the conclusion of this hearing, any participant may request an opportunity to present additional evidence, arguments, or testimony. The commission will decide whether the hearing will be continued to another date or whether the record will be open for at least 7 days. If you are testifying, please state your name, address, and full mailing address. If you wish to be notified of a continuance, appeal, or other action on this application, please print your name and complete mailing address on the form at the back over there. The name of the applicant. Rick and Gina Regalado. Correct. Thank you. Type of application requested. This is a conditional use permit. Does anyone challenge the planning commission jurisdiction to hear this application? If any member has a personal bias or conflict of interest, they shall declare it now, other than sue. If any member of the commission has or made a site visit, they shall state their impressions or observations. And now, Walt, would you give us the staff report?
okay, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Before you is case conditional use 24-04. As you know, this is an application of a conditional use to establish a child care facility on the subject property. As background, the facility will accommodate up to 10 children. Hours of operation are between 7:30 to 5, Monday through Friday. The facility is closed on weekends and holidays. The facility itself will contain 504 square feet of area and located on the west end of an existing shop building. Approximately 4,700 square foot play area will be located adjacent to this facility and surrounded by a 4-foot high gated fence. Up to 11 parking spaces are available, although the applicant anticipates only 6 spaces are needed, given the children will be dropped off and picked up at staggered times. The R1 zone conditionally permits a public, semi-public, parochial, and privately owned kindergartens or day nurseries in the R1 zone. Also, it stipulates that the residential character of the building must remain unchanged. This is for childcare services, and the proposal qualifies as a conditionally permitted use. For the record, the existing residents will not be part of the facility and therefore unchanged. The criteria for a conditional use are found in section 10.104.030. Under item A, the first point of consideration, is there a public need for the use? Again, the R1 zone conditionally permits this use. Anecdotal evidence certainly indicates the community needs childcare facilities for working families, and I think the proposal certainly meets that need. Under item B, there is an inadequacy of other property to satisfy this public need. While any R1 zone property conditionally allows the use, this location is especially suitable as located within city limits, yet away from large concentration of residences or commercial uses. Item C, the conditional use conforms to the comprehensive plan, other provisions of this title. The comprehensive plan designates this property for residential uses, and the development code implements this plan and identifies permitted and conditionally permitted activities, the later of which includes the subject of childcare facility. Therefore, the use is consistent with the plan. Under item D, the site for the proposed use is adequate in size and shape to accommodate the use, with all yard spaces, walls, and fences, etc., and other features required to incorporate the use within the neighborhood. The subject property contains 2.79 acres, and the site plan includes approximately 4,700 square feet of fenced play area. On balance, this appears more than sufficient for the use. Further, even if approved by the city, the Office of Child Care of the Oregon Department of Education determines whether the play area is sufficient to meet the anticipated number of children. So please understand, while we may go for approval, final decision maker will be the state of Oregon. Under item E, the site for the use is related to streets and highways, adequate in width, etc., to carry the quantity and kind of traffic. Access to the site is by a 30-foot wide stem connecting the developed portion of the property with the highway. This width will ensure sufficient width to allow some travel lanes if needed for parents entering and exiting the site. Under item F, the proposed use will have minimal adverse effect on abutting property or permitted uses. Staff estimated the facility to be over 50 feet from the adjacent residence to the east. Outdoor activities will not occur in the evening or on weekends or holidays and are not ongoing based on the staggered schedule anticipated by the applicant. On balance, the building separation and intermittent use of the facility should have minimal impact. Finally, item G, conditions stated in the decision are deemed necessary for public health, safety, and welfare. And again, staff, I did place recommended conditions at the end of the report. Now, the decision criteria does not reference specific development standards such as parking. I reviewed the request, chapter 1052 section for parking we do not have any particular requirements for childcare facilities. There is a provision that the closest would be an elementary school requiring 2 spaces per classroom plus an off-street loading and loading facility. The site identified 6 spaces and up to 11 if needed. I think given the applicant indicates children will arrive at staggered times and with no more than 10 children, the parent parking is temporary. It would appear the 6 spaces are more than adequate. For the record, the site includes a circular driveway, so vehicle maneuvering should not be an issue. Section 1052.060 contains off-street parking and loading requirements specific to commercial and industrial uses. Per this section, the commission has the option of waiving this requirement. Given the type of use, limited number of children, it does not appear use requires a separate loading unloading area for school supplies or whatever. For the record, the child care facility includes an area that allows the safe discharge of children. And finally, access and parking contain a hard, durable surface, therefore not requiring additional improvements. I'll also note the facility is pre-existing. The project does not include any building expansion, so there are no issues with regard to building height or setbacks. A portion of the property along the west side lies within the designated flood hazard overlay. However, based on the submitted plan by the applicant, this structure, the play area, and the school itself are not located within the 100-year floodplain, therefore are not subject to floodplain standards. And finally, for reasons of public safety, I think prior to commencing operations, it is appropriate to require the facility to include appropriate improvements and or building inspection, comply with fire safety requirements, and have adequate water and sanitary facilities. Finally, under the remainder portion of the conditional use provisions, one section deals with marijuana facilities, which is obviously not the case here. And finally, one final note, the role of the city of Yamhill is to determine whether the zone can conditionally permit the use. The state of Oregon licenses the facility to ensure compliance with specific child care standards. Therefore, operation of the facility cannot occur until such time the operator receives the appropriate license. Based on the submitted material and analysis of the conditional use criteria, staff recommends approval of the request subject to the conditions stated in the staff report. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
They got something they want to ask?
Nope.
I've got a few. Well, you recommend there in C3 that the commission require the submittal of a base flood elevation certificate. And I don't see that in your list of following conditions.
Oh, hold on just a second.
Okay. Maybe I missed it or
Oh, okay, flood hazard, yes.
misunderstood.
No, absolutely. That would be in my error. My error on that one, and I think we can add that to a condition under B, under recommendation and conditions of approval. We can add a number 4, which is flood information.
Under 4A.
No, under 4B, we can add another condition. It'll be, it'll be B4.
Okay. 4B4.
Right, and that'll be compliance with floodplain requirements.
Okay.
Making that note. Got it.
Great. All right, I'm just curious, I'll probably ask the applicant, but I might ask you, I might like to ask you also, now it limits to 10 children, and I noticed it limits to 10 children at a time. So they could have 10, starting at 8, and then about 4 o'clock, some go home and more come until 5. So I think that's perfectly fine. My question is, so they can have more than 10 kids enrolled, and that doesn't seem to be a problem. But are there other limitations besides this permit that will limit the applicant to 10 children, like their license or the size of the building or something like that? Are you aware of anything like that?
Yes, I faced a similar application in another community, and it was very clear during the discussion, the state of Oregon has control over the number of children based on square footage and the available play area. So ultimately the license holder must comply with state requirements, and if they would allow more, I don't think so, based on the square footage, but ultimately they make the call to make sure there is adequacy for sanitary sewer, water, variety of standards that they have to meet. This is not a simple rubber stamp here.
Yes, okay. Yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Because it would then not be up to the city necessarily to make sure they're complying with this conditional use, but there would be another layer of oversight if it was about their license or the size of the building, that sort of thing.
Correct. So if the state says no, they can have no more than 8, then they're ultimately going to be licensed for 8. I looked at the application. They requested that they plan for 10. I believe they've already done some preliminary work, and that would be acceptable to the state, but that's just consistent with their request. And again, the ultimate gatekeeper is going to be the state of Oregon.
Okay. That's all of my questions. Did anybody think of anything else?
Well, I will say in their defense, Rick is a certified state inspector, building inspector.
Yeah.
And he also is a licensed handyman. And so, they've done their research on this. It's not like they're just jumping into it. And the Department of Education is the ultimate, and I know they've worked very closely with them on that so that they can get approved.
Okay, and I will ask that same question to the applicant if they know of the other limitations based on building size or license when we get there. Any other questions to staff before we move on? Do we have any correspondence?
I don't have any written,
Okay, that's what I meant, written, okay. Applicant's presentation. Is the applicant here?
I'm the applicant.
Oh, would you care to, would you please come up to the podium, state your name and address? And if you have a presentation?
I do not. I wasn't
Okay.
asked to speak, so.
All right, well, we may call you back up to answer some questions that come up, okay?
Oh, absolutely.
All
Yeah.
right, well, thank you. And
Need my name and address?
well, since you're not making a presentation right now, we'll wait till later on.
Is that gonna be tonight? Or-
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, we've got but here's what's gonna happen. We're gonna get testimony in favor.
Okay.
We're gonna get testimony against, neutral testimony, rebuttal of in favor testimony. And that would be by, well, not by, that might be somebody else. Rebuttal of against, that might be you. Then commission questions to applicant and public. So that's what's ahead of us right now.
Okay. I guess I should clarify. I appreciate Sue stating your comments earlier. We are the reason we're the applicant is because we're the property owners. So my future daughter-in-law is the one that's doing she's the one that's certified and she's got everything. We're already background checked and everything else. But I think the more she's actually Zooming, and so she's gonna be more of the person to be answering particular questions that you may have. Mine will be more towards the property itself if you have questions in that area.
Maybe I should be asking her if she would like to say anything in the form of a presentation at this time. Okay, why don't we do that? What's her name?
Yeah, Shannon.
Shannon,
Shannon, is she on?
Yeah.
Hi, sorry, I'm just sick, so I haven't said anything. Um, is there something that I should be saying in the presentation? I didn't realize
It's
something needed to
okay
be
that you
said.
don't have one.
Okay,
Oftentimes, somebody's applying for something, they wanna kind of say why we wanna do this, why it's a good idea. But we kind of see that here in the application. You don't have to back that up. I don't think anything will be missing. We just wanted you to get a chance to say what you wanted to say. It seems to all be
or
here.
answer any questions that you guys may
Yeah,
have. that
that's
I can-
great. Well, we're gonna, if you can have a seat, and we're gonna move on to the next steps. Testimony in favor of the application. Anyone?
That's where I was stepping in.
And have us stand up there and
I'm Patty Perrin, 215 North Maple Street. I actually Googled their address.
I meant to say Patty, I'm sorry.
Hmm?
Patty.
Yeah, Patty.
I'm Patty.
But I Googled their address to see where it was, and I think it's a great thing personally, because there's a lot of land around, from what I could see in the picture anyway. A lot of land. It's not like their neighbor's gonna be 5 feet from them, and here are a bunch of kids out there ranting and raving and doing what kids do. But I mean, I don't have any kids at this point that would be using daycare. But you know, if my granddaughter moved back here and she has her 2 little kids, maybe someday they would be able to utilize that. I think it's a great thing. I would much rather have a daycare than a gas station.
Here too.
That's it.
Thank you.
Anyone else in favor? Any testimony against the application? Neutral testimony? Any rebuttal of in favor? There won't be rebuttal of against since there was none. Commission questions to applicant and public. Anybody have any questions? So I'll ask you, Mr. Regalado, what's your first name?
Ricardo by Rick.
And maybe, and Shannon, feel free to answer this. Are there other restrictions besides this conditional use applicant on the number of children by your license? Or by any other regulations like the size of the building or other considerations that the state has?
the only thing that would be restricting is specifically from the state of Oregon, just because the specific license I would be applying for, once this hopefully like goes through, is a registered family license, and that specific license only allows 10 kids. And that's only because it would just be me. Because if I were to have more kids, then it would be a certified family center, which would require me to have staff as well. So that would be the only restrictor, is the type of license I'd be applying for with the state, because that would limit to 10 kids. But it's a very specific license to where instead of like 10 preschool kids, it would need to be 6 kids preschool age or less, and then 4 school age kids, like after school care, if that were to be the case. But that would be the only specific restriction I would say in regard to like how small it is. But that's also because I'm doing it by myself.
All right, that answers my question perfectly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's see. Final staff comments. Walt, anything else you'd like to say?
I'm sorry, I just had to take care of a wayward dog. No other staff comments other than I recommend approval subject to the modified conditions of approval, requiring evidence that the site is not located within the flood hazard zone.
Okay. So the next step is that I ask the applicant if they would like to waive the right to submit additional written arguments at this time. I can't see any reason why you would want to do that. And I'm just coaching you a little bit on, this is not something that's complicated and we're putting you into a box that you don't see what's coming up. If you waive those rights, I don't see any repercussions from that. But if you want to maintain the rights to submit additional information, you cannot waive those rights. Would you like to waive those rights? Shannon?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
The only condition I think that we would need to consider is because I keep hearing floodplain. And I know we're far, I mean, what was the compliance of floodplain?
Oh, Walt said in his staff report that it looked to him like it's not in the floodplain.
Correct.
One of the things that we're going to ask for as a condition of this variance, is that you submit a few fancy words for it. A base flood elevation certificate. And that's something you get from the state that says, yeah, it's not in the floodplain.
Okay.
Okay,
So I have a
Also,
question.
also,
Does that cost money?
well, what they would do is that they would just have a surveyor go out there and just kind of look at it, and if there's any doubt, they can actually do a survey, but they would just fill out, I'm just looking for some sort of evidence that simply says this, the actual structural area is not located within the base flood elevation. Obviously, we're talking about children, and we want to make sure they're safe. I looked at the layout, I looked at the floodplain map, and I'm very confident that this structure is outside the flood hazard area. The only reason I raised this in my staff report, and thank you for catching that, Ken, the only reason I raise it is due to the fact that a portion of the property is in the flood hazard overlay zone, and this will just verify that it is outside. So that is my concern. And I think it's really a matter of safety for the children. That's all.
and well, I guess Sue's concern was money. Is this like a $300 visit from a surveyor?
I'm not too sure what a surveyor would charge. Basically, they're buying their stamp. And so if they could, you know, kind of shoot in elevation, or if they have any previous record on there, I could write it up. I could write it up so that the applicant does not have to submit a base flood elevation, but just evidence that indicates the structure, the actual school facility is located outside the 100-year flood. And that will give them some latitude. And again, maybe a surveyor just goes out there and has some elevation information. And if they can just put that in writing, that's all we need.
Well, or anybody, I haven't ever dealt with a floodplain before, but would that be in the property, the county records for the piece of land?
That's right, that's what I was
That's what I'm
gonna say.
thinking.
That's in the maps that I.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
It's
Right.
on this right here, and it shows exactly where the 100-foot,
Right.
because I'm in the same position, you know, where we live.
I'm just wondering if you could go to the county and get your property, if that would work.
It's
Nope.
it's in the application.
Or if they provide a topographic map that someone will say, here's the
Yeah, here.
location of the home. Yeah, a topo map would be great. I just want something on record in the file that verifies it's not in the 100-year flood. Because my main concern is the city of Yamhill is part of the National Flood Insurance Program, and we got to make sure that we cover the bases and keep the records correct.
So we'll leave it to city staff to determine if the requirement is satisfied.
Yes, I think that would be reasonable. Just some sort of evidence that we can put in the file that satisfies that particular condition. And, you know, the best is a base flood elevation, but if they can identify it on a topo map, I've worked with folks before, and that was sufficient.
Yeah,
And
I know how expensive this whole process has been. And I'm just saying that I don't want them to have to go to hundreds of dollars of expense if they don't have to.
Should not have to.
Okay.
Can they use FEMA floodplain maps? to verify?
That'll be great as long as it shows the house outside the FEMA map. I just have a basic overlay map based on the city zoning map that's on the web. I do not have the actual floodplain map. And in fact, if I can get a copy of that, even a photocopy of that section, I could verify it myself. So how's that?
That sounds good. And I guess what we're looking at here is that on your application, you've written flood zone, 250 feet from this point. So where you've got that information from may be what would be sufficient to convince the
Yeah.
city.
That's a
Right.
lower fence that, you know, we usually just don't have access to. I mow it a couple times a year, but
Where you've got that information that the edge of your parking lot there is 250 feet from a
I
floodplain.
measured it. I went out with a,
Oh, you went out with the tape,
well, not a tape, a rolling.
a rolling.
measure.
Okay, you'll need something more official than that.
Correct.
Okay, great. And the city will work with you on, yeah, that's good enough, or no.
I do have a question in regards to that. How difficult would it be to have someone actually just, because you come out and look, you can see, it's a pretty good incline
Yeah, it
from the
is.
flood area to where our house and our shop is at. I mean, I know it's silly, but picture's worth 1,000 words. I mean, because you can't tell from a map.
I think,
And the topo was perfect, but if somebody would just come out there, I mean, it would have eliminated a lot of, and I know we don't have the resources, but a visit would have been, the fire department came out there. They've been out there a couple times already. It's kind of like, it'd be nice to have someone just come out and look.
I'm not sure they're qualified to say what is a
No,
floodplain or
I'm
not.
just saying if somebody's like, whoever's doing the,
Walt offered to look at a map you submit and certify it. It's gotta be in writing. It needs to be, the city is protecting itself
Correct.
and the children from the situation. So it needs to be something that can store in a file cabinet,
That's-
not us going out there and saying, yeah,
Correct.
us, we're not qualified.
Correct.
So it's not convincing enough to City Hall. Okay,
well, because the only reason I say, I'm like, same boat as Sue is, and I was gonna bring a surveyor out because my pins are not where I think they should be. It was gonna be $2,500.
Oh, wow.
And I was gonna pay it because we were gonna get into a neighbor issue, and they just said, you know, fine, we'll just go off of what you think it's gonna be.
if you need to speak further with Walt about the idea that he put forward on what map that he needs you to
Yeah,
get.
FEMA
hold
map,
of,
okay,
It sounds like you can do this without that kind of cost.
okay, perfect.
All right, back to the issue of, are you interested in submitting more testimony later?
If needed, yeah, absolutely.
Would you like to reserve the right to submit testimony later?
Sure.
Yeah, how I'm reading this, Walt, is that if they do that, then we're gonna continue the hearing?
Exactly, because if they submit additional evidence, then you have to look at it and figure out whether or not it would change your mind or reinforce your decision. I can't imagine anything else coming in right now that would alter where I see you going.
We can approve it conditional based on this
The
and
information.
not have to come back to this though, right?
That is correct. You can approve it with the recommended conditions and the addition of evidence that applicant just submits some sort of evidence indicating that the buildings are outside the floodplain. And that's not hard to do. If I just can get a copy of the floodplain map and just something that shows where the house is, I could do that myself.
So I guess what I'm saying is you don't necessarily have to reserve the right to testify because the condition is you'll provide it to the city.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So what I've confirmed by my last question to Walt is that because you're not hearing testimony here, we're not throwing any hard questions at you, don't see any roadblocks, that you're satisfied that we have the information we need and we can close this hearing and vote. If you're not satisfied, then we will not close this hearing, we will not vote tonight. So that's why I'm asking you, what I'm required to ask you, are you ready to waive your right to submit further evidence? Do you feel like we've got everything we need?
I do.
Okay, great. Now we can move forward. It's a pain to explain,
No,
sorry.
that's fine. I just want to make sure the whole floodplain issue is taken care of.
Yes, and that is a condition of the approval, and you don't have to reserve your right to submit more information for that because it's the condition in the approval. Okay. All right, so now we're ready without further discussion to ask for a motion to close or continue this hearing. So if anyone would like to make a motion either way there.
I mean, motion close.
Great, and a second?
I will,
since I tried
to do the first.
Sorry. All right, let's just go down the roll call on a vote for that. Earl, aye.
Aye. Maxfield, aye.
Richardson, aye.
Moore, aye.
Freilinger, aye.
Okay, hearing's closed. Now, we're open. Close the hearing. Commission proceeds with steps 21 through 25. Commission discussion, reopen hearing if commission has new questions for the record. Additional commission questions, opportunity for rebuttal, new questions emerge. Motion and second with findings of fact to approve with conditions, or deny. So if someone would like to make a motion along with either of those three. I think what we're looking for is a motion to approve with conditions.
I jumped in last time. I wasn't gonna.
Maxfield with a motion to approve with conditions.
The conditions that were listed by staff with the addition.
Correct.
Okay. We have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Sue. Let's just do a roll call vote down the line.
Earl, aye. Maxfield, aye.
Richardson, aye.
Moore, aye.
Freilinger, aye.
You're done.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Roasted and toasted.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Yeah, we're looking
Thank
forward
you.
to it.
One thing before you go. Your plot plan might have elevations on the pins.
Oh, yeah.
You go to the county and you get your plot plan. They should have elevations on your pins, therefore you know the elevation of the floodplain. Vital, and that will expedite.
I think I have the plot plan submitted.
We didn't see a top.
They're not topographical, they're plots.
We just saw that one note.
But I'll get the more defining one with the.
I can't read it. Too small.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's the plat. But not top. Okay. All right, moving on to our next.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Shannon, if you're still here. Next public hearing. Start this over. I'm not going to read all of the part about public testimony. That's all still the case. Testifying instructions. The name of the applicant is the city of Yamhill. Planning filed DCA 24-03. Yamhill Development Code Amendment. Does anyone challenge the planning commission jurisdiction to hear this application? If any member has a personal bias or conflict of interest, they shall declare it now. If any member of the commission has made a site visit, they shall state their impressions or observations. And Walt, we're ready for your staff report.
Okay, thank you. I think this is what meeting number, no, this is our first public hearing, but probably our fourth look at this. I'm coming back to you with the actual application, and you have the authority to make a decision tonight to move this forward. This is not a work session, but an actual public hearing. The core of my presentation this evening is to review the revisions since our June meeting. And the big change that we made was in our July meeting was to eliminate all references to residential lighting. And that is the core of the changes I'm going to be reviewing tonight. So again, the bulk of this is the same, but I've eliminated, and I'll walk through this step by step to let you know where changes were made with regard to residential lighting. Again, the language before you eliminates any exterior lighting requirements for residential uses. So for the record, this was also submitted to DLCD as part of the post-acknowledgement plan amendment process. And as of the date, in fact, as of this hearing, I have received no comment from DLCD, which indicates they see no issue with this application. So let me walk through this document one more time. It starts off, obviously the change has gone from dark sky to exterior lighting standards. This will be a new chapter 10.66. And so under the purpose statement, which is item A, describes what this is about. I made no changes from the previous document. The next item talks about guiding principles. This section basically backs up the purpose statement. These are not criteria, but just lays out before the public, if you will, why the city chose to adopt these lighting standards. And again, these guidelines are, I think, consistent with your discussion. Under the next item is definitions, which is item C. And now this is where we'll probably have a little discussion. I made no changes on the document except for effective date. And I put on here the effective date of January 1, 2025. Now, Sue contacted me about this, and I think she had when do we start the clock, so to speak? And actually, the impact had to do with I think, Sue, your question basically had to do with the gas station and how this would impact the gas station. I picked January 1, 2025 as the effective date because we cannot guarantee when the council will see this and will potentially adopt this. I'm assuming by the end of this year. Looking at January 1, that is a starting time for a lot of things. In other words, it's very simple to look at January 1 as the beginning of the requirements and go from there. It seemed to be easier for, I think, staff to look at any changes or people asking questions, when do I have to update things? And I also note later on that since we're looking at commercial and commercial only, I'm suggesting a 2-year window. Doesn't have to go that way. If you want to go 6 months, 1 year, whatever works for the planning commission. But I recognize that some of these changes may also require some structural changes. And it takes a little while to put money aside, but it also takes time to get the folks to go out there and do the work. So I think January 1, 2025 seems reasonable. Again, I'm not going to die on my hill, so to speak, with that. Whatever works for the planning commission, but that was just my suggestion. So other than that, the definition section under C remains the same. The big change is under D. Notes that existing non-conforming requirements are within 1 year from the effective date. Everything under applicability was everything was changed to eliminate any reference to residential uses. In other words, this is applicable for lighting for commercial uses, publicly owned and operated uses, period. There is no reference at all to residential. There's no reference to mixed use residential or commercial. These are the only things that are going, commercial uses. And I should probably note, even though we don't have them, just one minor change, industrial uses. So cover the bases for the potential here. but that's the sole limitation, and I really want to emphasize that folks with their outdoor lighting need in residential area need not change anything. And that was noted again in the staff report. I highlighted those changes. Now, under E, which is general requirements, it may look a little confusing what I've done here, but basically, the only thing that was really done is to go ahead and all the residential references were eliminated, period. And only one lumen standard applies. And I think we discussed 1,500 lumens, which was acceptable for commercial. And that's the only standard that applies. Afterwards, everything going through the following items: canopy and eave lighting, exterior display, parking, lighting curfew, security lighting, color, publicly owned. All that was just really renumbered to make sure that everything is consistent. There was no reason to have a separate non-residential section because the whole document is effectively non-residential in its direction. So we no longer have a separate section for lighting requirements only for non-residential uses. The whole thing applies for non-residential uses. And for that reason, the only change that was made was to renumber the items. Under item F, which is signage, we had a discussion on signage. There were no changes relative to residential uses. We agreed you can light up no more than 50 square feet of signage. And again, that's exterior lighting. That's not internal illumination. That is shining a light on the sign, maximum 50 square feet. I think originally it was 200 and the commission noted to reduce that to 50. Again, there are no impacts, any changes necessary for residential uses. The only other change under item G, which is prohibition, the prohibition is basically the use of lasers, searchlights, upward pointing lights, blinking flashing lights, and external neon lights. These are prohibited. Exemptions are provided for lighting the U.S. flag at night in emergency situations. Neon lighting is limited to trim. Now, the prohibition was extended to include lights located within the building and visible from a public street. That was a change that was made, and I think that's consistent with the discussion. Let's see, under item H, exemptions. Existing lights are exempt, but must conform. This section also includes provisions for string lights, and decorative lighting and special events are exempt. Again, lighting the U.S. flag, athletic fields within limits. The major revisions are string lights are limited to 100 lumens per light. Most of these are lights that are going to be associated anyway with commercial uses and turned off after business hours. Item H8 was expanded for temporary lighting to require turning off lights within 1 hour of the end of operations. And the only potential, and again, potential residential regulation that remains is decorative lighting. Decorative lighting between October 15th to January 15th is exempt from the requirements of this code. So that covers Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. And I'm not sure there would be an issue if someone decides to have some green lighting outside their home for St. Patrick's Day. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. The next item is under I, existing non-conforming lighting. That was not changed. We're still looking at the same requirements. The same goes for item J, lighting plan required. The only other changes that need to be made are, as I recommended before, all the definitions in 1066C would be put in chapter 1008, and also eliminating the phrase festoon lighting in section 1064.110C, which had to do with signage. The rest of the report goes through the findings. And again, DLCD has no issue with this. So it's a matter of whether or not the final document meets with the satisfaction of the Planning Commission. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have concerning the final document.
Any questions?
I have one.
Great.
So section 7(9)(I) says 2 years of effective date.
Mm-hmm.
Does that conflict? Seems to I guess I'm not seeing the difference. Seems to conflict with B4D, which says 1 year.
Okay. These standards B4D. Okay, hold on.
That's page 2. Well,
Okay. I got 2 different pages I'm looking at here. Are you looking at the staff report or the exhibit?
Both in the staff report.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay, just a second. Let me capture that.
We're 2 pages away from each other.
Yeah, okay. Ah. My desk isn't big enough. No, it is 2 years. And that was, it would be 2 years. Originally, it was 1 year, changed it to 2 years because the focus is on commercial. And again, during my presentation, it was just based on my thoughts in terms of putting money together to make the necessary changes and hiring the people to do it. I think 2 years is reasonable. If you want to go 6 months, 1 year, as I said, I have no particular, dog in this fight, which is the appropriate way to go. So if you want to, you're more than welcome to change that.
Right, if we could pause and have that discussion now, Walt, is that all right with you?
Well, that'd be fine with me.
Okay, let's go to that, the page where it says January 2025. Now, let me just say a little bit of my thinking about this. Remember that if the gas station came, gave us a lighting plan before this was in place, then they would have 1 or 2 years or 6 months or whatever we described.
change it.
To change, they would have to change it. So if we don't get in front of them with this ordinance, almost nothing is lost because they aren't gonna do something that they have to change in 6 months or a year, probably. And if they do, they'll have to change it anyway.
Well, and to me, what I remember, if I'm right, I might be wrong, but we put this meeting out 1 week to be able to facilitate having the 35-day notice so that we could have a public hearing, so that this could go to the council in September so that it could be implemented. Because we know that they're going to come to us. And if we wait till January 1, it's gonna be exactly what Ken says. They're gonna put whatever they want up there, and then we're gonna have to deal with it for 2 years.
Or 6 months, we're probably gonna change that too. But yes, so Walt is saying, don't cut it too close. I kind of think we're feeling like January is too much.
Way too long.
So let's just do this timeline. We had this public hearing. This won't get handed to the city council for them to look at until next month.
Yeah, September. But
September.
they could approve it in September.
They could, unless they want to come back and ask us questions. Let's ask Shelley what she thinks, if that's all right. How much pressure, what can we assume that the council will do? At rule, we're not asking you to guess on whether they'll pass it or not. How soon will they get to it?
Well, they could get to it September 11th when they meet next, but I think they would take very seriously the consideration of the council and the commission's recommendations.
Right.
So I would imagine that if you had a particular leaning one way or the other, then that's probably they would rely on your recommendations on that.
So we
But
could
I would imagine if requested, they would be willing to make a decision on September 11th, but if more information is necessary, they would be willing to push it back.
Okay, thank you.
I believe they have to have 2 readings before they can approve it though, don't they?
2 readings, Walt?
I'm not too sure what the council requires. Shelley could help on that.
Well, we've done enough of these, why don't we know? By now, right? I mean, I can't remember. First and second.
Nothing, I do know that nothing is actually enforced or actually becomes law until 30 days after passing. So that would put it out to October anyway.
Well, that's a whole lot closer than January 1.
Let's assume that they need 2 readings just for the moment. So that would be September and October. Then it would become, it would go into force October, November 11th would be, if there's 2 readings.
Unless they can approve it out the second, because they then had it.
That assumes that. So they would read it September 11th, they would read the second one and approve it on October 11th. Boy, none of us know about 2 readings.
Let me look.
Are you looking, Angie? Are you thumbing through
I
your?
was going to, but
We'll give
it's a
Angie
lot
a
of
minute
pressure with
to,
you guys watching me, so.
and
We'll look this way.
yeah, we won't watch, and we'll just take a break here for a minute. All right, I'm gonna be back.
Adoption of ordinance requires approval by a majority of the council at 2 meetings. Okay.
Well, every 6 weeks is important, is all I'm saying. In my opinion.
Does it clarify in that they can vote at the second, Angie? Is there language about that?
They can adopt it a single by unanimous approval, provided the proposed ordinance is available to the public at least a week before. So that would be maybe if I'm posting it ahead of time. It must be read aloud before the council adopts the ordinance. What was the question again? Shelley?
Does it say anything specifically about whether they can vote at that second meeting after the hearing?
Sounds like we could do it.
It just says it.
First one.
Well, it's saying it may adopt after a single meeting
If it's
Yeah,
unanimous,
unanimous.
though.
if it's unanimous.
That's. Odds are it will probably be unanimous, but you can't say for sure. So you have to count on at least 2 readings.
But if we said that we were hoping for this, we could get it posted for that week ahead of time. To make sure that that was feasible.
Yeah, I could definitely, if I have it a week, I could post it to the public a week ahead of the September 11th meeting. What does that give me? First, we need.
So my only question then is,
Presented to the council by then, though.
so my only question then is, we need to put an adoption date in the document. So do we do October 1, November 1?
Yeah, we could say October.
Or,
What if we said October 1 and it wasn't approved by
right,
then?
exactly.
Would the whole thing fall apart or would it just work
Say
anyway?
whichever comes sooner, but
Yeah,
adoption date or after 2 hearings, whichever is sooner.
Yeah, we could say September 11th in that case,
Yeah.
right?
Because Ken, what you missed is it can be adopted at the first meeting with a
Unanimous.
unanimous
Unanimous
vote.
vote.
The second
Right.
meeting would be a majority to put it through, I believe.
So
This
it doesn't
reading-
require a second then?
The second thing is this reading,
And it
Did
would-
she find that?
Yeah, it wouldn't require a second meeting if
reading.
If
it
they have
was
a,
unanimous with the first one.
I didn't.
Oh, I think we'll get it. Oh, I missed that part, thank you.
yes.
I think.
So it would be,
that'd
have to be posted to the public 10 days, was it a week? Or 10 days, you said?
It was a week.
Okay, a week prior to that meeting, and it would have to be a unanimous vote to adopt it, for it to only go in one.
Great.
If it isn't a unanimous vote in the first meeting, then they would have to carry it over to a second reading and, majority, so it would be majority. of the two.
Let's just say then 30 days from September 11th, assuming we're gonna get lucky, so, and then, but like Shelley said, have it be the sooner of 30 days from September 11th, or 30 days from when the council approves it.
That's the same thing.
So I would just say,
No, it's not the same day, it's if they take a second
If they take a
meeting,
second.
Second reading.
and it has to go farther.
then, but if we word it 30 days after,
Approval.
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 Yes. Just
It'll
leave it
it'll
at that.
cover
and leave it
Yeah.
at that.
Yes. Okay. How's that sound, Walt?
And it did say it had to be 30 days.
Goes into
That's-
effect 30 days after approval.
I think that's a good way of doing it. And by doing it that way, you just get out of the start date. Staff will just have to note when that occurred.
No, let's take up when non-conforming will need to be done. 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. Discussion.
I'd be interested in hearing Sue's opinion as a business owner.
Well, here again, I mean, I can understand that some of it could require lighting, electrical, whatever, but I think that in reality, speaking from what knowledge I have of electricity, which is, a little bit more than this much, but anyway, I don't really see that changing the things that we're asking to change are really getting into requiring an electrician. We're talking about the light fixture itself. That's not gonna you could hire an electrician. You may need to hire an electrician, but that's not talking about anything that's an expense. I replaced my sodium lights and they were $100. And so the low lighting with the caps are not very expensive. And I think most businesses have got those kind of things built into it's either that or a transmission, and a transmission is a whole lot more expensive in comparison to have to replace it. 2 or 3, and most of them are not gonna have a ton of lights. I mean, even thinking about T&E, they've got lighting on both sides of the building. Nothing out coming down the road this way has really got that.
We don't really know of any existing non-compliance, other than hopefully the fire sign. That's my next question.
I was thinking of the Shell station maybe.
Yeah.
The Shell station.
Yeah.
So if they have to put a shield over a light, I don't think that's gonna be an undue burden they couldn't handle in a shorter amount of 2 years.
Yeah.
So where are you at, Sue?
I think 6 months to a year is sufficient.
I'd say 6 months. I think
I saw you
anything
go
above that is
I was leaning
excessive.
towards a year, but I can go 6 months.
Well, it looks like it's 3 to 2.
Yeah.
Okay. 6 months. Great. What other questions? Any other questions?
I just have a quick question. What's
Sure.
the consequence of not within 6 months? Is that outlined or
Is it complaint based?
is it a fine or? What is it?
Do we have something? Well,
Yes.
what is the consequence of non-compliance?
Well, this would be a violation of the development code and you can be fined. I think it's up to $500 per day per violation. Understand for most jurisdictions, the issue is just get conformance, not necessarily looking at fines per se, just get the thing under conformance. But you do have that potential and it's up to the judge.
That answer your question. What's your thought about that?
I mean, is $500 a day spelled out in our code? Is that what it specifically states?
That's what he's saying.
It is.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if, and I don't know if this is standard or not, but do you want to add any particular language that says, something about hardships and extensions and, apply with the city or something like that? I don't know if you want to offer that or not, but.
Maybe both ways too, harshness extensions and also, well, this change is, $2,000, so fine, here's 500.
Right.
don't bother me. So maybe it needs to have,
Unless it's
time goes up with time.
But here again.
He said 500 a day.
hit per day.
Oh, whoa.
That's good motivation,
That's good.
Okay, yeah, maybe I'm talking picking hardship.
and it's better than like public hanging for a constable.
Okay, what about that idea?
Maybe an additional 6
Might be
months
more.
for a hardship or something like that. I don't know.
But here again, if we start altering what we are doing here, then we're changing the ability to bring it to the council next month. So,
Oh.
just what I'm saying.
Oh, no, I'm not sure is that true, Walt? If we alter this,
We have to vote next one.
we have to
No.
have another public hearing or something?
No, if you're pretty clear on terms of the changes, so far I just see two in terms of the effective date and just reiterating the 6 month that's already in the exhibit. And then I made a slight suggestion to include industrial uses as well as commercial. It's more of clarifying. No, this is the reason for the public hearing. If you are satisfied with those minor changes, it can go forward.
Are we wanting to get some hardship language or are we good with way it is?
I'm good with it the way it is.
Okay.
And the reason I'm saying that is because
Yeah.
most people, when they know, when they know that this is in place, they're gonna start planning for it because they know that they have to do it. I don't, is there hardship on anything else that we're doing?
Not that I know.
Okay.
Okay, one other thing to clarify under violations, it's under chapter or section 1.3 something of the municipal code. So that's really governed by the city council. So if they want to change those violation provisions, I suggest leave it up to them.
Yeah, if we start tinkering with it at this level, we'll get into some sort of dissonance between this level and that. Okay, thank you, Walt.
Yeah, let
I
them
guess
make
that
the call.
settles that.
That answers that question. We can't do that. We can't
Yeah.
do the exception.
Yeah, so that settles that. Okay, so I'm just curious about the fire sign. This says after business hours is supposed to be shut off. What are the business hours of a fire station? I don't know, did we miss again?
Well, the sign is different from lighting and you need to separate those two. If I recall, the fire district issue has to do with their sign.
That's right.
That's a separate issue and the council simply grandfathered them in while going through the sign code.
They did, okay.
Yeah,
I forgot
now,
that.
if they have lighting and in fact, there is a provision, 24-hour businesses, if you will, which would include a fire station or a police station, would certainly keep their lighting on.
Okay, but not the sign. I think they have political reasons, we don't, so they grandfathered that in to not stir up that nest, I would imagine. Okay, that's the way it is. I'm gonna look at my procedure here. We've done the staff report, we've done questions to staff. Do we have any written correspondence, Andy?
No.
Applicant's presentation, that's the city, we already done that. Testimony in favor of the application, anybody have any testimony in favor?
I have a question.
Ooh, I'm not sure you'll get an answer.
It's not existing.
You wanna make a statement, go right ahead.
Okay, Patty Perrin, 215 North Maple Street. From what and I can see a lot of the downtown area from my house. I don't see a lot of lighting issues. I hear about the Shell station a lot. If they don't comply with their hours or anything, I mean, they leave their lights on all the time, even when they're not there. So I think that's the issue with the majority of people that live at that end, that live right there. It's not necessarily the lighting, it's the hours that they leave them on 24/7.
Well, and this would address.
This addresses it.
Both of it.
Yeah.
So any testimony against? Rebuttal of in favor, rebuttal of against, commission questions to the applicant. We've been doing that. Final staff comments.
As the applicant, I just want to say staff did an excellent job. No, I've always wanted to say that. No other comments other than the change of adding the word industrial to make sure we cover the bases, and also the change to the effective date. And certainly recommend approval, and I think the findings are sufficient to support that decision.
I commend you for your shoulder flexibility. All right. The applicant's probably not, the applicant is, are you gonna waive your right to new evidence?
Sure.
Or open, keeping the hearing open, all right. Let's have a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
And a second,
I second.
and a roll call vote.
Carl, I.
Maxfield, aye.
Richardson, I.
More aye.
Freilinger, aye.
Thank you. Additional commission questions. So now we move to approve the conditions or deny. I don't think there's no conditions listed. I guess
No.
we're not gonna approve it with the changes made today. You wanna do that, Sean?
Yeah. I move that we approve the staff report and approve with the changes recommended in the report and in our discussion. That work?
Works for me.
Okay.
A second?
I second.
Thank you, Sue. And roll call vote?
Maxfield, aye.
Richardson, I.
More aye.
Freilinger, aye.
It's done. Hearing's closed, the vote's taken. We now have something to send to the city council. I'd like to recommend a little change in the agenda. Next, we have the Title 11 review. And it's 7:30. I'd like to just visit this establishment of the Economic Development Committee and the Downtown Associate and Historic District first, if I may. Just to get that out of the way. I think it'll be brief, and then we can settle in and other people can go home, but it more affects some people that are here. So let's go to that section of our report. I guess it's just, is it just on the, here it is, all these whereases. All right, first let's talk about the Economic Development Subcommittee. What this is it seems that the declaration that was made earlier, you remember when Chief Craven put that together and read it, and suddenly this committee was formed and it was put under the umbrella of the Plan Commission. Well, that whole thing seems to have not been recorded in a way that it could be found again. And which is okay, because what got brought up by Jenny Morrison, was the first one to bring it to me, said, you know, we've been kind of talking, it makes more sense if this is under the city council and the Plan Commission. And I said back to her, yeah, I think so too. And so they rewrote up the charter because the old one wasn't found. So that's kind of like, it never happened, I guess, is the best kind of way to say it. I mean, we're operating on something that the paperwork has not survived. But this is a rewriting of it, and it's put under the city council rather than us. And I wanted to just, before I wanted to point that out, maybe notice that from your reading. You okay with that, Lynn?
Whatever makes it work best,
Yeah,
just so it works.
Sean? Yep. Did you notice that when you read through? Yeah. Okay, so what is required of us right now, I think, is nothing, because this is up to the city council to adopt this. Okay, and I just wanted to point that out. Now, the same thing is true of the historic district, maybe not. We never had, not sure we ever had a resolution. This is the first time it's been made official like this. And again, it will be under the jurisdiction of the city council. So that's not really for us anything to approve or not, or even nod like, yeah, we agree, that's fine. Because it never had anything to do with us really. Anyway, officially, we acted like it did for a while, but.
Well, we were told it was.
Yeah, we were told. But now it's not, which is fine with me. I mean, I think it is more of a city council thing. Not a planning commission thing. Okay, so that addresses, to my understanding, these two items on the agenda. Is that, do you agree, Shelley?
Yeah, I think that pretty much summarizes everything.
Okay,
Because I think the historic district would actually be a designation, would be a project under economic development, but that's neither here nor there. So
Well,
it's
thank
kind of
you.
historic under economic directly under city council.
okay, thanks for that clarification. I didn't, I didn't make that point. So good. So, great. And the members are, I noticed the members of the Economic Development Committee are listed, but not the historic.
Because there's not any members at this point. I think it was more an assignment that they want to create this, but the work needs to be done to see what's involved in that. And that would be what the Economic Development Committee would do.
Okay, I think amongst themselves, unofficially, they had said, okay, you're gonna work on historical stuff, and you're kind of a subcommittee of this. Now it's gonna be made more
And I don't
official.
know if there'll be a subcommittee. It might just be part of what they do. So I'm not sure
Part of
exactly
what
how
they
it's
do.
designated. Yeah.
Yes, okay,
So it might be the same people essentially.
yes. And so that's to be continued, but it's not up to us. As far as who are the actors on the historical society, the historical designation piece. Okay. Now, the good stuff. Title 11 review. Somehow I find this. I missed something.
Housing grant.
Oh. Yeah, I could. Walt, would you update us on the grants?
Okay, we're still kind of chugging along right now. They're starting to look at the code updates. The last email I looked at indicated that they've done about 80% of their review. They're putting together a citizen advisory committee. Some recommendations have been made on that. I think the actual sort of heavy lifting will begin in probably the month of September on that particular project. So I have no results to share, but also the correspondence I see in various emails, the state is very happy with the progress that is being made, recognizing it's their dollar that's being spent, if you will. So they're very satisfied with the way the project is going. Again, I haven't seen any material. I've been making comments with regard to some questions that they had, but looking forward to, I think, our first CAC meeting sometime in September that will probably get this thing moving a little bit further. With the TSP, part of the TGM application, I haven't heard anything back yet. They normally will not announce until September. I'm hoping that I can share something good, bad, or indifferent by the September meeting. So that's kind of where we stand right now. Again, nothing negative. The application was submitted in a timely fashion, so we got it under the wire. They accepted it. And I got all the records and data on that. So, fingers crossed, let's see what happens. And I certainly hope we get it because I see it as tying in these other two projects of the housing and also downtown development. And I think there's a very, very good connection with looking at transportation. If we're going to have new residential areas or infill, want to make sure people can get around town safely. So that's kind of where we're at on those two. Now, under the next item, Title 11 review, I'd like to make a recommendation or suggestion, excuse me, to the Planning Commission tonight. We have been probably putting this on the back burner for a couple of meetings due to looking at some code revisions, obviously some land use applications. Unless I'm mistaken, I don't think we have anything on our September 16th agenda. And I'm kind of recommending that we can use that meeting to close out the last 10 or 11 pages of this product. I can also provide updates on what we've already looked at and go from there. And that way we have one full meeting to start 6:30 and just wrap up Title 11. Otherwise, we're going to piecemeal it with tonight and next month. So that's my suggestion. And I'm happy to go ahead with whatever the commission wants. But just a thought, since nothing's on the agenda for next month, and good time to sit down and talk about it.
Okay with that. I've got 16 family members at my house right now. And I just like to get back to them for dinner because this is gonna be long.
Yes.
Well, we have, our homework was 10.136.040, which went from, on my printout, page 6 to page 13.
Correct.
And that, I mean, I really got into this. I got a lot of stuff there, and I don't think that'll be trivial. If we
Good.
want to add more to it, I mean, I can do more homework. It's not like I'll be overwhelmed getting ready, but it will be a lot. But if you want to recommend the rest of it, would be 14 to 21. We'll do it all and try to do it all, or just maybe get ready for it and do as much as we can.
I definitely think so because I think this is a real good opportunity for a very good discussion about this Title 11. And I think this would be an excellent time. So my suggestion, let's kind of go through it and plow through it. And I don't see anything on the horizon, so we might be able to get it done next month, or certainly a big chunk of it done next month. That's my thought.
Okay, great. So assuming you did your homework, you had gotten prepared from page 6 to page 13. And now we're gonna go from 13 on to the end to 21.
Yeah.
Just be ready for that next time and we'll see how far we get. I don't know, I found it strangely interesting. I mean, I have a lot to ask about. You there, Sean? Did you get? No,
it was interesting, but
I thought I'm not gonna stay awake, and then I'm like, oh boy, this is interesting. Okay, enough on that. Does that bring us to the end, if I'm not mistaken? Oh, our next meeting,
16th.
the 16th of September. And that's it. I'm gonna adjourn.
I did have.
Whoa, thank you, Shelley.
So sorry. I did have one announcement. Since
Sorry,
we've got some
Diane.
citizens here. We do have the Yamhill County Transit is working with ODOT on a study in Yamhill County of all their bus stops, which are 2 in Yamhill. And this has been posted on 2 Facebook pages, the city and the Yamhill, what's it called?
Yamhill Town Community.
Town Community Facebook page, and then recommendations submitted to me, but they are proactively asking us before, they're basically wanting to put signs, new signage and potentially a seat at these 2 stops. But while they're doing that, they're asking, do your citizens have any input about where these stops are and would they like them to be moved? Since we're doing this study, we'd like to hear from them. So if citizens have an input on that, just email me directly. I'm compiling those and I have to turn those in by September 5th to them before they'll move forward with ODOT permitting. And we have had some good suggestions actually. So there's been quite a bit of interest in that. One of the suggestions was potentially moving a bus stop right here to across the City Hall. So if citizens have feedback.
And I was also interested in if Public Works would want to weigh in on this, because they kind of know traffic in town and have some background in that. Will they be willing to take a look at that along with everybody
I
else?
imagine they would. So yeah, Jason's aware of it, but I haven't talked to him yet.
Would you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because I think he would, I would put a lot of weight with what
Okay.
he thought as well.
Yeah, and if the
Citizens.
commission obviously has any feedback, or thoughts on
Well, with
that.
the gas station going in, there's gonna be a huge increase in traffic and adding a bus stop might
Uh-huh.
be a bit too much.
Yeah, so
Okay.
just anybody's welcome to email me directly.
Now,
or
who's gonna make that? Are we gonna? Where does all this information come to us?
No, it's
No.
the organization that's Yamhill County Transit,
Yeah.
and so they're working with a consultant, a planning firm who reached out to me, and so all this information will go to them, and they will take it into consideration as to where ODOT chooses to move the bus stops to,
Great, so this is
if at all.
nothing to do with us.
Nothing, it's just more informational and send me your input.
My mistake.
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
thank you.
I know where one of the stops is across or up by the.
They're across from
little
each
thing.
other.
Oh, the
One's
either
going
side of the
north and
road.
one's south.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay. I was like, I know where one of them is. Okay.
So it's mostly about adding new signage and a potential seat for people to sit, but while they're doing that, they just want to know if there's any other feedback on the bus stops in town.
And I think the seat kind of involves working with the bank on maybe getting some.
A seat, it's like they're gonna add a new, it's like a seat attached to a
Okay.
post.
We were looking for a shelter before. And, because we have a couple stored in a barn somewhere. But maybe that's off the table.
No, but that's a suggestion you can make if that's what people want.
Jason would know, Jason would know about where that building is and what kind of shape it's in. Isn't there a shelter on the other side over
Yeah,
there?
there is.
There is. And so something like that, we have it, but it was trouble working with the bank, and again, this isn't. I was on the transportation committee for a while, the Citizens Advisory Commission, so that's why I was trying to work this, and then it kind of, they lost an administrator, and it kind of fell apart. I'm glad it's coming back together again. Okay, so that's just some input.
That's it, just the
If
announcement.
Jason wants to weigh in on whether that shelter that's in storage is a viable option
Okay.
in his mind or not. That would be valuable to the transportation committee.
We will be meeting tomorrow, so I will ask.
Okay, thank you. All right, ready, go.
Birthday party?